Welcome, Mike.
Well, a couple of thoughts, sweetie. Thank you, dear heart, and welcome everybody. A couple of thoughts, because the normal language of the world turns everything that's true backward. And you'll notice that part of the language here was those things that happen that cause fear. And that's exactly 180 degrees out of phase with the truth. But as long as we hold that belief, we'll think that it's the things in our lives that cause our fear, rather than the holding to fear is what sets up the energy to draw those situations that we say bring up or scare us, are the cause of our fear. So the reversal, I think, is really important in tapping into the truth of who we are as human beings, and being able to own the fact that our mind is steeped in fear is the gateway to being able to weaken the energy of fear that probably comes from 1,000 generations of terror and trauma. You know, with all the stuff in the world about violence and such, and there's some pretty crazy stuff going on, sadly and fortunately, we are probably at one of the most peaceful times on the earth that's ever been. You look at, you know, our earliest ancestors, and, you know, you didn't know if, you know, a lion was coming out of the bushes, or a rabid dog, or, you know, whatever. The kinds of things that for centuries people have been holding to fear about, and not recognizing that fear is the block to bringing forward the solution. And the cause, literally on an energetic level, you know, when you recognize we live in a world of resonance, and that law of resonance, if you're not familiar with it, simply stated, says this: when two energy fields are in tune or in harmony with each other, there is an exchange of energy between them. You know, if I set up a frequency with my voice that you have brain cells for, like, don't think about the color of your car, by saying those words, that frequency coming out of my mouth causes air molecules to vibrate, whether you're in the room with me or we have to go through speakers and towers, and who knows, maybe you're on the other side of the world, but it's all just frequency. And when those air molecules hit your ear and cause the eardrum to move, and that eardrum creates a frequency that causes brain cells to fire, this happens by that law of resonance. It's a law of energy exchange. So the law of resonance says that when two fields are in tune or in resonance, in harmony, have a similar frequency, there's an exchange of information between them. Don't think about the color of your car, brain cells fire, and up comes the color of your car, or whatever the frequency is that I engage in with my voice. If we have two baby grand pianos, and we open the back on each piano, and you go over and pound out a middle C on one of those pianos, you can go over and look inside of the second middle C piano. And I don't know, if Julie's listening, she could probably tell us how many strings there are. I don't even know whether the number of strings in pianos varies from one to another. I would assume it does, but whatever it is, if you pound out a middle C and you look inside of the second piano, you'll see that the only strings that will be moving in the second untouched piano will be those associated with the middle C. That's resonance, exchange of information. Now, when it comes to the human realm, there's another feature added by this law of resonance, and that is that there is an attraction or a movement toward those who hold similar energetic patterns. So if I pound on middle C on one piano, the other piano is not going to come over and jump up on top of the first one. But if a human fires a certain set of brain cells, let's say those associated with fear, then through exactly the same law as the strings in the piano moving, the second person will tend to have fear move within them. Nobody has to say a word. It's just, when I hit the middle C piano on one piano, I don't have to go to the other piano and say, okay, now all you middle C strings start to vibrate. It's just an energy exchange. Well, in precisely the same way, nobody has to say a word. If fear is moving in person one, and person two has a similar energetic pattern within them, then fear is going to move in that second person. If fear moves in that second person, and there is an alignment between the two, then that second person in fear is going to tend to come closer to, come into relationship with the person who has the attractive resonating frequency. Now, you say, well, but fear isn't attractive. When I say attractive, I mean those frequencies which draw us together. Why in the presence of one person do I respond one way, and I'm in the presence of someone else, and it just all of a sudden there's a whole different thing happening in my mind? It all has to do with resonance. So in the human realm, resonance creates a draw, a motion toward each other. We've heard it said this way: birds of a feather flock together. People of similar energetic patterns tend to draw themselves to each other and then tend to draw out behaviors within each other. If fear is the underlying hidden, especially if it's a hidden energy, because each time you attempt to hide something, as Michael's talking about in his book, each time you attempt to hide something, what are you doing? You're adding energy to it. You're pushing down on it. By pushing down on it, you're adding energy to it, and that just strengthens literally the energetic pattern that sends out that energy wave. And people say, well, if that were true, then we'd be able to see those energy waves. Well, come on, let's not be silly here. I'm in a room right now, and I can't see one television frequency. But you know what? If I turn my television on, I'll probably be able to watch 1,000 different ones. It's all right here. It's all frequency. It's all energy. Why does this particular station, i.e. the horror movie or the movie of sweetness, come through this particular TV? Because the TV is attuned to that frequency. Forgiveness is about changing what you are attuned to. And the idea here is to prepare your instrument, your form, your body-mind unit to be an instrument that's fit for the expression of your human life. And if you ever have any doubt about what a human life is, just hold a newborn child and tap into the essence of that newborn. You will discover that the newborn is not loving you, but that the newborn is love. When you start showing up in your own mind, then you set up a different frequency. You're not hitting a middle C on the piano anymore. You're hitting a middle A. Now what moves in the people around you? Frequencies associated with the middle A. Now go downtown and get in with the quote-unquote wrong crowd that's playing middle C, and watch how long it takes for somebody to attack you. And you don't have to say a word. Been some interesting research, and it's been repeated, where they've gone into a prison and they kind of reverse the lineup. Usually you see a police lineup and there's somebody behind a two-way mirror, and they're observing suspected criminals in order to identify the criminal. But this was done in reverse. They did the lineup, only they brought people in from the street to the prison and had the criminals behind the double mirror. And the prisoners, looking at this lineup of just people off of the street, would invariably select when they were asked, of all, there you have 10 people in front of you, which one would you attack? Invariably, a very significant number of the criminals would pick the same person out of a lineup. 9 people or whatever number would be left alone, and most of the criminals would be attracted to that particular one. And if you ask them why, there's no why except the law of resonance. So to start to show up as love, now people say, well, when life gets nicer, then I'll start loving. Well, loving isn't something you do, it's something that you are. But if you're going to wait, if you're already in a world of violence, if you're already in a world of upset, disturbance, fear, rage, guilt, grief, pain, drama, or trauma, if you're going to wait until life starts to show up delivering something other than what you're already carrying within you, you're going to wait a long, long time for the results you'd like. When you start weakening, forgiving the frequencies of generational and cultural patterns of hostility or fear, and start consciously, purposely choosing to bring love present to your mind and into your physiology, then life's going to change its game. And you know what? You're not going to have to say a word to bring about that result. It's simply resonance. People have talked about the law of attraction. And people talk about using, say, for instance, affirmations to force things to be true that aren't. The person in poverty affirms, I have wealth, I have wealth, I have wealth. Big mistake. We have a tool called a mind shifter. People sometimes call what we call a mind shifter an affirmation, trying to pretend something's true that isn't. But what we suggest is that you recognize that if there's a part of your mind that goes against what it is that you're affirming, you better deal with that part of your mind, or by affirming what you want, if what moves in your mind is, oh, I'll never have that, then you'll never have it. So what we do with the mind shifter is we suggest that people take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, write the mind shifter on the left side of the page, and then write everything that comes up in response to it through resonance. Example I usually use is, let's imagine we've got a young man that lives in poverty and has all kinds of relationship difficulties. So I give him a mind shifter. And the mind shifter is, I have all the time, money, wisdom, energy, and love I need to accomplish all of my aspirations. So that's his mind shifter. We're going to suggest he write it on the left side of the page. There's a dividing line on the page. Now, what's the first thing when you hear me say to you, you have all the time, money, intelligence, energy, wisdom, and love you need to accomplish all your aspirations? What's the first thing? Well, that's just baloney. I can't even pay my bills. What are you talking about? Run out of thoughts? Write the mind shifter. Can I have all the time, wisdom, money, energy, and love I need to accomplish all my aspirations? Why, that's just ridiculous. They repossessed my car just a month ago. Now, you might write 5 pages in response to writing that mind shifter once, or you might have to write the mind shifter 10 times before your mind starts to loosen up what's in there. But through resonance, the idea of the mind shifter is we're going to provide a resonant frequency that will cause hidden things in your mind that need to be worked through to surface. So a mind shifter, by definition, our definition of a mind shifter is, it's a thought about an issue in your life around which you have negative thoughts, and it's the opportunity to surface, process, and release the negative thoughts. So if the natural state, and I'll offer that's what it is, of the human being is abundance, but there's poverty, then there's the frequency, the energy within that individual of poverty. Perhaps it's been going on in the bloodline for 1,000 generations, and if Welsh showed up, the first thing that would happen would be, well, as a matter of fact, there's a pretty good example if you look at the research of people who've won the lottery. A very high percentage, and I couldn't quote the numbers, but you could Google it and find out, a very, very high percentage of people who win the lottery within a year or two are broke again. Totally, completely broke. Why? I mean, you think about that. Gee, somebody just won $5 million. Somebody who's lived their whole lives in poverty wins $5 million. Now, this person hasn't spent more than $10,000 a year in all of their lives. And here they've got $5 million. How could they possibly go broke? It's called the law of resonance. They will draw in people who will find a way to empty their pockets, and they'll end up desolate and on the street again. And what this understanding does is it acknowledges that we are creators, and we create according to what we hold within us. You know, if you read the opening words in the book of John in the New Testament, which is thought to be a book about religion, what we're told is that those words say, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. If you go to the Aramaic language, the actual translation of those words is, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. People whose mind energy is hate and fear and rage and sadness and guilt and grief and gossip and slander, their physiology is challenged by carrying those frequencies because they're not designed to carry those frequencies. Our human physiology ultimately is designed to carry active present love into the world. So if you find yourself that this is a new piece of information and you go, oh, gee, I didn't know I was designed for that. Now your work begins, and your work will be twofold. One side of the project will be that of forgiveness. No, not letting other people off the hook because of whatever's gone on in your life, but rather applying the tool of forgiveness to remove the frequencies, the energetic patterns that have run your life so far. That's what forgiveness is. Churchianity turned that on its head and made forgiveness about, of course, the reason why I'm in poverty is because of you, but it's okay, I'll forgive you. In this work, specializing in forgiveness, I will say, never, ever, ever forgive anybody for anything. And especially never forgive yourself. And most people are confused because, well, Michael, I thought your work was about forgiveness. Yeah, that's what it's about. Forgive continuously, but never forgive anybody. We've been given a totally, completely false definition. We've been told a lie, that forgiveness is about how I'm in pain because of you, not because of the resonance in me that drew you to do what you're doing to me. And, of course, the reason I'm in pain, I'm in trauma, or I'm in poverty is because of you, but it's okay. I'll let you off the hook for that. That is probably the most tragic, disastrous lie that has ever been told to the world, because actual forgiveness was disappeared. When you hear the words in the ancient teachings that say, you must forgive from your heart the wrongs of your brother, that's not a bleeding heart statement that you're supposed to, with sorrow or sadness or grief or whatever, you forgive from your heart. The heart, in our modern updated language, is the unconscious. You must remove from your heart that which the wrongs, the energetic patterns that you put into your brain's image of your brother, and through resonance draw on behaviors out of him to match what you hold about him and or about yourself. So there's a whole technology of forgiveness which has been completely shattered by the world. So forgiveness is a tool with which you collapse your own perceptual constructs, and by so doing, dropping into the hidden parts of your own mind and removing the energetic patterns that don't belong there. The idea of the mind shifter is to show you what to apply forgiveness to. So our young man who I gave him the mind shifter, I have all the time, intelligence, money, energy, wisdom, and love I need to accomplish all my aspirations, writes and writes and writes, and finally he gets in touch with, oh, geez, I can remember, the last time I saw my father, he and my mom had a big fight over money, and he left and he never came back. Bingo, major core issue for forgiveness. That's where he made the link that money destroys relationships. So now if money comes near him, all of a sudden the relationship he's in leaves and they're destroyed. Because as creators, the mind energy we hold to literally becomes flesh, becomes physiology. Literally what the cell biologists are showing us in the laboratory is when you think a thought, that thought produces an actual literal molecule in your structure. It's called a neuropeptide. And that neuropeptide circulates around your structure until it finds a cell with a receptor site that matches. When the neuropeptide lands on that cell, because there's literally a resonating antenna for it, there's a place for it to land, then what the cell biologists are showing us is that frequency is replicated inside the cell. Mind energy becomes flesh. And if we were watching from the inside, if we were watching that cell from the inside, what we would see coming into the cell as the neuropeptide inserts itself or is replicated. Some scientists are saying that the cell replicates it. My offering is that actually when the neuropeptide lands on the cell, it inserts itself. If we were watching it insert, what we'd see showing up in the cell is what we call chemistry. Mind energy becomes chemistry, literally flesh. You want to produce disease chemistry? Hey, just step into the dis-ease energies of rage and guilt and fear and hate and vengeance. Watch how quickly the device you have called the body-mind unit starts to fall apart from its dis-eases. You want to begin the healing process? Then remove the dis-ease frequencies that are destroying you. Pain is simply a signal that the structure is holding some form of dis-ease energy. And these patterns have been going on for so long, people will sit around forever and try and figure it out, as Michael was saying. If you listen to our Codependence to Interdependence Intensive or workshop, you'll see that I list what I call a number of the pseudo-solutions of the non-being mind, and the number one pseudo-solution is if I could just figure this out. Notice Michael mentioned that. Most people sit around trying to figure it out. You can't figure it out, but you can forgive it. At any given moment, you can take any untoward energy that you hold in you, engage in the process of forgiveness, and reach the next depth and the next level of what needs to be worked through. And as that happens, trauma tends to disappear. So in a nutshell, that's the understanding we're here to support people engaging in. And as far as how do you do that, well, that's a whole conversation. This afternoon, if you want to join us for a worksheet at 3:30, I'm going to be doing the Hear My Voice book club out of London, England. It's actually 8:30 in London. And today we're going to do a worksheet with someone. So if you'd like to tap into that, if you go to today's notes, and you do that by going to our website, whyagain.org, there's a microphone on the page. Click the microphone, drill down to today's show, and Jeannie's put notes there. And there's a Zoom link. Click the Zoom link and join us at 3:30 Eastern Time. It'll be 8:30 in London. So you can walk through a worksheet with us today. There's also, if you go to our website, whyagain.org, in the upper left-hand corner, there's a link that says Start Here. Click the Start Here link. It'll walk you right through many, many, many radio shows where we've walked someone right through the whole forgiveness process. So all the tools are there, and we're here to support you in using them. Take it and put it to work. The purpose of this show is to answer questions, is to keep the conversation going within ourselves so that we individually and collectively remember who we are, and to create support and understanding for how to use the tools. You can also go to your app store on your phone, whatever phone you've got, and type in the words Heartland, one word, Heartland, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. If you type in Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, you'll be looking at the world's only forgiveness app. Download it, click it, start it, and you're off to the races. There are two different forms of the reality management or forgiveness worksheet there. There's also a children's game called the Dragon Klingon game, which introduces forgiveness to children. Put those tools to work. If you have questions, if you start to use those tools and you're in the middle, let's say you're on step 3 of the worksheet and you just don't get what that step is about, there's a link there you can click. You can ask your question. You can type it in, hit send. Jeannie will introduce your question in the next radio show. We'll answer it and then send you back a link with which you can listen to the answer directly in the archives of the radio show. So join us this afternoon if you'd like to do a worksheet, or if you're using the worksheet process or any of the tools that we teach, ask the question by pushing 1. If you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you're listening to the show directly. And if you have a question or a thought, push 1, raise your hand in the control panel, and we'll be rocking with you. So, Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room? Any other thoughts for you, or anything as you're looking at what you've been reading from Michael's book?
No, I don't have any other thoughts. You covered that very well, as usual. You can put us in the chat room. There are no questions on the switchboard. If somebody presses 1, we have 17 minutes. We have plenty of time. Or I can
Let's talk about it.
Either one.
Yay. So you're out there in listener land.
Oh, we got
What's
a hand
happening
up.
for you? Oh, great. Let's say hello.
Okay, I believe it's Dusty 904. You are on the air. Welcome.
Well, aloha, everybody.
Aloha, good
Michael,
sir. Welcome. Good to hear your voice.
Yes, thank you. You too. And you're in a fine voice today, and I really enjoyed your talk on resonance and how powerful that was. And I had just a couple things on that because it was so nicely done. I was doing Schladney's, I don't know if I said that name right, experiment, where he took a plate on a violin and put lycodium powder and could get different patterns and by different frequencies.
Right.
And then
cymatics.
And another cymatics, exactly. And
Yep.
anyways, a lot of that through the year, and I was so glad to hear you say that. And this thing about the prison lineup was very elucidating and tied in with something that I'm thinking maybe all those in radio land that are listening might get a kick out of, because that was so clear that they would all pick pretty much the same person. I knew that I'm the most amazing woman a long time ago. She was 10 years younger than me to the day. I think she was 22 or something at the time. And I knew her on the big island in Hawaii, and she was a vagabonder. And in terms of she just, she could travel with a pack on her back anywhere, and nothing stuck to her. Some people, they get noticed, and people have attitudes wherever they go about that person, but not her. And of all the people I ever knew, she could go anywhere in the world with a pack on her back, a single woman, and be safer than if she was a whole squad of infantrymen. She just, nothing stuck to her. She could go right through the heart of the worst part of town. And she had zero victim consciousness resonance, which is, I guess, kind of the opposite of what your guys did in the lineup. And I asked her about that because I noticed to a degree. And her part of her explanation was, well, it helps if you're a little above average looking, but not too good looking, and not this, that, and the other, but mostly it was just how she was. She was clean and would never attract anything negative. I've never seen anybody quite like her, and that to me was a good example of what you were talking about on a positive sense of that resonance about people and attracting people. And I will say that it was a pleasure knowing somebody like that. And for anybody out there that sometimes, I suppose most of us at one time or another walk into situations that are pretty dicey. She would just slide on through and no problem. And so anyways, yeah, that thing about resonance, thank you for that. That was really good.
Yeah, and you bring up that cymatics thing. If anybody who's not familiar with it, just go to YouTube and type in cymatics, and there are all kinds of videos that are just really powerful visual demonstrations of how frequency organizes things. And you watch enough of that, and you get to start to realize that you are a frequency being, and that the frequencies you engage in. When you watch the cymatics and the shapes and patterns and forms that different frequencies create, you realize that's all that your so-called body is. It isn't a physical thing. It's just a set of frequencies that are resonating, and that you can change your resonance. You can remove what never belonged. The generational patterns of rage or hate or fear can be removed and replaced. And when that happens, literally, the whole if a particular energy impacts, let's say, the liver, someone's liver is going to be destroyed. And if you go in and remove the frequencies from the liver that don't belong, the liver can go back to its perfect pattern. It wants to. It's designed. Everything's designed to regenerate itself in the image and likeness of the original frequency that set it up, the perfect. But when we superimpose those other energetic patterns, all of a sudden it looks like, you do that for a couple dozen generations, and disease and death and suffering look pretty normal. But they're not. They're anomalies.
Right on. Nice. Yeah, and I see a lot of that going on these days. Of course, I'm in a tourist place. It's pretty transient, but that whole thing about being a set of frequencies, I mean, that's just been a part of my life, my whole life, pretty much. And
right.
I have to be really, I really do. I need to be careful about my own mind. What am I thinking about? What am I dwelling on now? Am I on some, or by the side, something that's not productive? Because,
right.
I mean, it's just a never-ending. Because I'm finding I don't know if it's typical or not, but I always seem to have something I'm thinking. My brain is I'm constantly having thoughts, and sometimes it's just
mind energy.
Often it's just a song. I'll have a song, I'll be playing a song in my head. But so when one has a mind of its own, so to speak, at times,
right.
I have to monitor myself. I
mm-hmm.
do little things to keep track of my own
right.
idiot thoughts, the ones that don't serve, as it were.
Yeah. That's actually a chapter in my book.
Yeah.
The body has a mind of its own.
A large amount. Yeah, it's a mind of its own, and I'm a little disturbed when I really take my own inventory about how much of my mind just goes off on itself, and it's counterproductive. So, and that's one thing that music helps me keep together, because it's all about frequency and harmony and melody and blah,
right.
blah, 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 and all that, and that really helps me. That's just been like a gift from the gods, as it were, and I appreciate that. And that your talk was, I hope people that heard that let it sink in, because it's a big thing, this resonance. And by the way, yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead with that thought, and I'll come in with the other.
No, it was separate. Go ahead. You do. Tell me.
Well, when you look at the let's take an example of a television set. If I'm sitting watching TV and somebody pulls into the driveway with a poorly tuned car, all of a sudden the picture on my TV goes crazy, goes distorted. It becomes diseased. And I can go in and try to, surgery that TV and change resistors in it and put new parts in it, new tubes. Nothing's going to change the reflection that is diseased in the picture of the sound until I remove the interfering frequency. And each station that I tune to has what they call, which I know with your electronics background, we share this one, which is kind of cool, that has a carrier frequency that brings a signal into the TV, and then the TV decodes the signal, and that's where the picture and the sound come from. And music, I think this is a really important key too, is that music is a carrier. Many people, if they want to remember something, you're teaching a kid, what do? You put it in a song. And then, 10, 20, 50 years later, all that kid has to do is hum that tune, and they remember the words. And the tune is like a carrier, and sadly, a lot of the words, a lot of the frequencies that are being fed to kids are tragic and insane.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are destroying themselves and their lives by engaging in music, the carrier wave of music that they like and they jiggle to, and everything moves, which means it's going into every cell in the structure. And then the destructive frequencies that are coming with the words can be a tragedy. So I think it's a really important thing, especially for young people, to understand that you stay away from music that carries frequencies of death and destruction, which so much of it has got today.
Yeah, right on. And and I I would say a couple of the more rewarding things in my life had to do with just what you said, in a sense. I played a couple of different times. One time was a solo, and I was hired by this woman to go to this assisted living or whatever it was called, this pretty high-end place, and play because her mother was there. And and I didn't know until the night before that her mother was in what they called the memory ward. And I didn't know what that was, except, I mean, I'd never heard of it before. Yeah, and I went, oh my goodness, this, but you know,
Alzheimer's, dementia.
Right on. And so I went, oh my goodness. So what I had to do was real quick that night, grab my horn and play anything that they would have known as girls, young women, because that's what they were going to remember.
Right.
And so
it's
I got
Glenn
there,
Miller
and
going.
Yeah, and it was pretty hard for me to be Glenn Miller and his orchestra, but I did my best. But it was just as simple as maybe playing something like America the Beautiful on my horn, just like a nice intro, and then singing it and having them sing with me. And Michael, Jeannie, anybody that's listening, it was one of the most uplifting, heartwarming moments in my life, because the moment I started doing that, and there was about, there was probably 15 of them, and they came out like a rag dolls, hanging down, nobody's home. As soon as I started playing tunes that they knew and they had good associations with, they sat up straight and they had a glint in their eyes, and they all started singing, and they were joyful.
They were rocking. Yep.
Yeah, they were, and it could be the corniest thing in the world, or not. It didn't make any difference as long as it was of their a memory, their life.
Time frame.
And
yes,
and I wish I could share that image. I can try here in words, but I mean, from literally sitting in the chair hung over, looking down, to just sitting straight up with bright eyes and going, yay, joy. And I went, wow.
Nothing like bringing life.
Oh, man, it was.
Thank you.
And, And
thank you for giving them that gift.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that. And
I have a friend up in Indiana.
Yep.
A friend up in Indiana that's a singer, and one of the things that he's a member of a small group of people, and their focal point is going into nursing homes and doing performances. And he's shared with me just how heartwarming it is to watch, the kind of response that you're talking about, and bringing people back to life, quite literally.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yay. Let's and I don't know much what else will do that. I mean, a cattle prod might get them going for a moment, but it's that music. It's just got the goods, and I'm glad that they're doing that, because more and more I think about doing that, but now they've got it. Oh God, all these places want you to fill out all these W whatever forms and do this, that, and the other, and it's not a matter of just showing up. It is like it used to, like it was even a few years ago. But I'm still on tap.
I lost you. Jeannie, are you there? Hello? Well, I don't know if anybody can hear me, but I just lost you if you're still there, and it just dropped. Everything's just gone. Okay. Well, then, our apology for the line being cut off. Jean just came in and told me something happened, and don't know what it is, but we're down to just the last few seconds, so we'll just say thank you for your input, Dusty, holding a space for you, and please, next time I see you, bring the horn, not the cattle prod. And everybody, have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Blessings. Bye-bye.